it's Ed, and welcome back to episode 4 of Cracking the Codex. We are visiting this time the Stormlance Task Force. Joining me as ever is John. How are you doing today, John?
Yeah, really good. I am very excited to see what we can throw together using mounted Space Marines, which there must be tons of them. The amount of references this detachment has to them, there must be lots of them. So
So we're
very
playing White
excited.
Scars, right?
Yeah, because their named character has a bike, right? Right?
Don't worry, when you get to the army list, you will see that we have got some white painted models in this list. They're not White Scars. Really, let's just have a quick chat before we go any further. There are two sort of ways you can take this list. There are
Yeah.
two lots of mounted models, and they both come from the indexes that are not basic Space Marines. That is Dark Angels and Space Wolves.
Yeah.
How are you feeling about those two detachments?
Yeah. So I think the Dark Ages one's got a lot of cool things that add a good layer and functionality that you don't get from the Codex. Space Wolves, I'm not that fussed by heirloom weapons that don't do much, so I don't really have that much of a strong opinion.
Yeah, so spoiler ahead, we're going to be looking at this through the lens of the Raven Wing. That's the way that we've decided to go with it, and there are a few reasons for that before we get some comments. So I just wanted to address this at the start. Realistically, I don't think that the version built around Thunderwolf Cavalry is good. Their weapons are AP1. There is no way to improve that AP in this book, as far as I can tell, in this detachment. So you're going to be hitting with AP1. They are hard to kill, but they're also very hard to move around. They're on massive bases. I believe it's
50
60
mil.
mil. Is it 50
Yeah.
mil?
I think it's
They are,
50, yeah.
yeah, they're huge. They're very difficult to move around. They are quite slow once you factor in terrain. So you have basically Death Guard, but on the back of wolves, which is not how I think the list plays best. Raven Guard does have quite a lot of fun tech. Raven Wing, sorry, has quite a lot of fun tech that we will get to later in the video. So, what do you get if you are the Stormlance Task Force detachment? Well, your detachment rule is Lightning Assault. You get to declare a charge in a turn you advanced or fell back. Solid, really good rule. This is something that we've seen White Scars have for the last couple of editions when they've had their own rules.
Yeah. And what I do like straight off the bat is, like all the other detachments, it is just Adeptus Astartes units. So you're not straight away pigeonholed. It's like the main core part of the detachment is quite open and inclusive, which gives you more options, right?
Yeah, because there are more specific rules that are coming along later on. But with that army rule, you could look at this and go, I have ideas that I want to put in. I'm not saying it would be the right way to play dreadnoughts, but if you wanted to play a dreadnought list that wanted to get into combat, you absolutely could run 3 Brutalis dreads and maybe forwards deploy some of the Invicta Warsuits or scout movement forwards. So, stratagems. This is often the backbone of a Marine detachment because a lot of good stuff is unlocked in there. As always, we've broken this down. So you can see here, 4 of them are battle tactics. You've got a lot of options if you're running Space Marine captains. We haven't got any captains in our example list coming up, but I think in this detachment, you'd be pretty happy to run them. We've just gone for a very sort of specific theme in this list. First of all, Armored Contempt, 1 CP. You know it, you love it. -1 AP to incoming attacks. Value. You're never upset to see it. You're going to get good value out of that one. Blitzing Fusillade. This is 1 CP. Use it in your shooting phase. So you pick one unit that hasn't shot yet, and until the end of the phase, ranged weapons equipped by models in this unit have Assault. And if it already has Assault, you get Sustained Hits 1. It's pretty snazzy for a CP. The obvious usage there is you don't actually have to be shooting. You can use this on a unit that you want to do some sort of action with. You can spend a CP and effectively turn on the ability to do teleport homers in the middle of the board with the unit that you've just thrown up there.
Yeah.
Lovely stuff. Second on, we've got Shock Assault. This is also 1 CP, and this is specifically a mounted unit that has not declared its charge yet this turn in your charge phase, and you get to reroll charge rolls, and your models get the Lance ability. So this is a bit of a double whammy. So there's a lot of the detachments have some sort of way to give Lance or some sort of combat boost, but this is one that you have to forward declare before you actually get to combat. So there is a little bit of a risk that you will waste the CP if you don't get it in. However, the benefit to that is you also get to reroll the charge. So it's definitely a little bit of a trade-off compared to some of the other combat boosts you can get.
So you wouldn't want to put that on a risky charge. It needs to be a charge that, with a reroll, should happen. I think it's that kind of, it's your 7 or 8 inch charge. Anything bigger than that, why are you spending CP almost?
Yeah, the sweet spot for me feels like sort of a 6 to 8 inch charge, where getting the lance rule is nice, and gives you that sort of 2 strats that are worth about half a CP in my mind there. Lovely stuff. The reason I say that the lance rule is only worth about half a CP is there's not actually that many good melee units that are mounted. But
I tried to find them.
Sometimes you just need to put a little bit more damage into a soft target. Finally, in the battle tactics, you've got Ride Hard, Ride Fast for 1 CP. This is, in my mind, the absolute best stratagem. It is nuts.
So cool.
It's your opponent's shooting phase. After an enemy unit has selected its targets, you pick a mounted or a vehicle unit that can fly. And until the end of the phase, all attacks that target your unit are -1 to hit and -1 to wound. That is a hell of an efficiency boost.
So, to me, straight off the bat, I'm like, right, if I've got a Storm Speeder
and
it's sitting on a point, looking pretty, being a real problem, stripping someone's cover away or making something +1 to wound, someone's going to try to deal with that. And it's already quite a tough, resilient body compared to, say, bikes. So it gets you really good value there, which I think is quite nice.
It's one of those buffs where it's realistically not going to save you from dedicated firepower going into it.
No.
But it skews the math. So if you're playing against someone who's, maybe they've only got 1 or 2 units that have been able to get an angle on a unit, and this keeps it alive. It's a great little piece of tech there.
Fun.
We've also got the 2 non-battle tactic stratagems, which are Full Throttle for 2 CP. That is in your movement phase. Until the end of the phase, that unit, if it advances, doesn't roll. It either goes 6 inches if it's a vehicle, or if it's a mounted unit, it goes a full 9 additional inches. That's, again, just really valuable if you're trying to play the positional game, especially if you've got any assault weapons in there. Just lets you key off and do actions where you need to.
The shame and the shame that they have included is that it says excluding walkers. So that means dreadnoughts will not benefit from it. So they've it's a shame, but I can see why they've done it, because I think that does distract from the theme, and I think that would be a bit unpleasant, right?
Yeah. I mean, I'd love to see it on any unit and just, advance aggressors or terminators 11 inches up the board and go, ha, now I'm charging you. But that's probably not what we're looking for here.
No, I think there's other detachments that you can do that better as well.
Sure. Finally, we have Wind Swift Evasion, 1 CP. In your opponent's movement phase, just after an enemy unit ends a normal advance or fallback move within 9 inches of one of your units, you get to make a normal move, this time of up to 6 inches. So that's better than the one that we saw in the Gladius detachment, where it was 6 inches if you're in the tactical doctrine, or D6 otherwise. It's the best version of the stratagem outside of if you're playing Eldar or Grey Knights, where you just get to teleport or move out of phase.
It does mean that a bike unit's not doing a full move, but I feel like that's been done intentional so that you've got to think about whether it's worth it.
Yeah, absolutely. Being able to do a full move in your opponent's movement phase would be probably
frustrating.
Yeah, I don't want to play against that, so I'm glad that we...
Yeah, you've played it with your Eldar, so I don't want to play it either.
That wasn't a full move. The Phantasm's limited to 7 inches. It's the other strike and fade rule that they've...
I know. I'm just teasing.
All right. Enhancements as well. Fury of the Storm. I do think all of the enhancements here have some play. They're not the best ones, but they're pretty tasty, actually. There's some real build-arounds in here, and we ended up taking 3 of them for our example list that John wrote. So first of all, Fury of the Storm. This is, it has to go on a mounted model. It's +1 to your strength and AP, or if you make a charge, it's +2 to the strength and AP of your melee weapons only. That's expensive at 25 points. I'm not in love with that. This is the one that I think is the least impressive. And funnily enough, it's the one that we didn't take.
It's something that 9th edition chaplains would have loved to have attached to them.
Sure.
But the way that they kind of slap now, No, thank you. It's a shame. Even with Lance kind of backing it up,
Yeah.
you'd then be, if you're lucky, you'd be potentially wounding stuff on 4s into big targets. That's not enough for the 25 points, I don't think, for one guy hitting with like 4 or 5 attacks.
Maybe you could see some use for it on one of the Thunderwolf mounted units, like one of the captains, because obviously the Thunderwolves themselves get attacks as well, which I believe would key off that. Yeah, you'd get additional AP and strength
Yes,
on your
because
light
it doesn't
attacks.
say not, because quite often they'll specifically say it doesn't include the extra attacks, so should work, yeah.
Yeah, so maybe there's something there, but as I said earlier, I don't think that's a particularly competitive build to go down. But if you want to run some Thunderbolts, go wild. This is the way to do it. Importance of Wisdom, 15 points. Your any model, any character in the book, and when they're leading a unit, you can re-roll advance rolls made for that unit. That is fantastic. Perfect. You want to advance and shoot, charge. Yeah, it's just good.
So in Gladius, we were all taking Terminator Captains with our Terminators for exactly that purpose. So if you can put that onto a more useful buff, great.
Absolutely. Fainting Withdrawal, 20 points. This is, again, any Adeptus Astartes model, and that unit is able to shoot in the turn it fell back. So if it's leading a unit, you can fall back and shoot. Very valuable.
Perfect.
There is one particular unit that we've really honed in on for this detachment, and I think you'll agree that being able to fall back and shoot rapid fire plasma is chef's kiss. Last of all, we've got Hunter's Instinct. So this is another mounted unit only. And the Bearer's unit, if they're in strategic reserves, they can be set up 1 round earlier. So effectively, you can come in on turn 1 from any board edge outside of your opponent's deployment, or turn 2 in their deployment if you wanted to. Again, this is very valuable if you're perhaps looking to get some short-range plasma in range of your opponent, which we are. Yes. This is we were talking about this one before we went live, and I think being able to rapid ingress on turn 1 especially appeals to me, because then you can get within 9 inches, you'll be able to rapid fire your Ravenwing Black Knights, get that 3rd shot, really make the most of the dev wounds keying off the chaplain. That's a bit of a spoiler for the list, so I guess let's just go to it.
Let's do it.
So we have gone with, and you're going to see Deathwing Knights, and there's a little bit of bias here. Both John and I enjoy Dark Angels. John plays a lot of Dark Angels, and also Deathwing Knights are just really good. So even though this isn't a list that necessarily super synergizes with them, the fact that you can advance and charge with them, great.
It's what I'm always looking for when I use them.
Yeah, being able to close that gap is very good. Having something that can just take a bit of punishment and control and bully the midboard is very strong. In this case, you've paired them with a Terminator Chaplain who gives them +1 to wound in combat, just a little bit more efficient than the trying to get lethal hits in there on anything other than wounding on 6s, that is. He's equipped with the Portents of Wisdom, so the Chaplain's going to be re-rolling advances. You're realistically going to be getting probably 7, 8, 9 inches of movement out of that squad, and then being able to charge with them as well. We've also got we've got 2 chaplains on bikes going with the Ravenwing Black Knights. So the way that works is the chaplain lets you get devastating wounds on the shooting attacks of the unit that it is attached to, and as long as it is shooting the closest enemy unit within 12 inches, I believe. So you're going to be putting out 18 shots with the plasma. If you're within 9 inches, you're not going to be getting all that many devastating wounds, but it just pushes that efficiency up a little bit, and you're going to be, putting through a lot of moderate to high AP shots, damage to, really trying to put the punishment down without being caught. So 2 chaplains, one with fainting withdrawal. So if you're playing against World Eaters, anyone who wants to be in melee, they come close to you, you drive away. That's great. Then you've got the other one with Hunter's Instinct, starting off in strategic reserve, coming in from reserves on turn 1 or turn 2 behind the enemy lines. There's a pair of Talon Masters as well, because, and I hope this gets fixed, Talon Masters have Lone Operative if they're within 3 inches of, is it another vehicle? Is that the
I believe, let me just get the data sheet bit up. It's if they are within 3 or more of a friendly mounted or Astartes fly vehicle.
Excellent. That is even more flexible. So most of the things in this list, it could be nearby, but that keys off other Ravenwing Talon Masters. That's why there are two of them here. So they effectively function as a 2-model squad. You get to fly them around. They've got a 16-inch move. They've got a reasonable amount of firepower. They've got a little bit of melee capability as well. And they also have lone operative. So they're going to be very strong in a shooting meta and give you a lot of tools to play with. Then we've got 3 scout squads, because every Marine list should start with those. If you need the points, you can cut 1 or 2 of them, probably only 1 of them, but forward deploy and scout move at 55 points a model, 55 points a unit is very strong. Storm Speeder Hammer Strike. Remind me what this one does, John. This is the turns off cover.
Yes, so it's got a melter destroyer and some missiles, and basically if you successfully select one enemy unit, 1 or more attacks have hit, until the end of the phase, they cannot benefit from cover. So you literally tag a unit with it, and then your Ravenwing Black Knights are going to be then probably chopping into them as well, just to make that AP3 matter a little bit more.
Absolutely, yeah. The only thing I enjoy more than putting Marines on a 5-up save in cover is putting them on a 6-up save and saying you don't get cover. Big fan of that. Turns out you don't pass many 6-up saves. Then finally rounding it out with a pair of Whirlwinds, because they're just good. They're efficient. You could definitely drop them and look to play in other ways, but the range capability in this kind of struggles to get behind angles.
Yes.
You don't want to get too close to entrenched melee units specifically. So being able to just start to punish them, chip away, kill scoring units behind walls, very valuable.
So the early draft of the list didn't have any Whirlwinds, didn't have the scouts, and I tried to just put mounted in full stop. And I then looked at it and I just realized that it wouldn't play the mission as well.
Sure. Looks good to me. What was the sort of main driving force behind the list? What was the sort of...
So I wanted to utilize as much of the mounted capability, keep it thematic within that kind of parameter as well. So having things like the Talon Masters, which would make sense to be with the Black Knights, but then also make it a playable army, because there's nothing worse than going, I've gone a theme where it's all Ravenwing. Just because you can bring all Ravenwing doesn't mean you should. Because, yes, it's a lovely theme, but you'll struggle with a lot of basic things, like if all your units are tied up in combat or shooting, who's holding points? The answer is no one.
Absolutely. So I think the other direction that we could have gone with, which would be way less interesting and way less thematic, is loads of dudes in boats. Just load up impulsors with melee units. I think that'd be an interesting direction to take it. You advance and charge out of the boats, but it's not really thematically there.
Yeah, so I did look at things like assault intercessors with captains leading them, and it's just, yes, they're advancing, but they just hit into things kind of doing mid-range combat, which is why, funnily enough, the Deathwing Knights slipped back in, because I was like, at least they can hit something, and if it gets through, it really kills it. So,
sure. Yeah, lovely stuff. Well, thank you very much. This has been episode 4 of Cracking the Codex. As always, let us down in the comments which of the Space Marine detachments you'd like to see next. And when we're done with those, there are some Tyranid detachments coming. So we won't be looking in this one, but be thinking about what you want to see first. All right. Thanks for watching.